Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making some delicious creamy garlic mashed potatoes. So let's get started. First off, you want to have a large pot at hand, and you should grab 2.5 pounds of potatoes. You have a choice here. You can use Yukon Gold like I am. You could use russet potatoes, or you could use both. Sometimes I go 50-50 with this, and here's the deal. Russet potatoes are gonna give you really fluffy mashed potatoes. Yukon Gold will give you creamy, amazing mashed potatoes. So do what you want, or use both so you can split the difference. I don't think you can go wrong with either choice, as long as you have enough milk, butter, and garlic to give you all that richness and flavor. I'm gonna peel these up really quickly, and then we're gonna cut them into large pieces. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week, and there's always something delicious on the horizon. Every day I get thousands of comments of people asking me, John, what vegetable peeler do you use? I love this OXO vegetable peeler. It's really great. Those were all lies, except I do like this peeler. Nobody asked me anything like that. I get detailed recipe questions instead. Technically, you could have left the skins on and just given your potatoes a good scrub. However, I do not live in that household. I live in the house of texture issues. So, peeled it is. Now we're just gonna cut these into larger pieces, about 1.5 inches or so. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mashed potatoes are pretty universally loved, but that also means that everyone's gonna be very upset if you mess the recipe up. And there's only a couple things that can go wrong. Either you boil the potatoes incorrectly, I'll talk about that in a moment, or you under-seasoned them, which is sad. No one wants bland mashed potatoes. Or you over-mix them. So if you over-mix your mashed potatoes, you activate the starch in them and they can kind of become gummy. So a couple things you have to avoid, but otherwise it's really easy. And eventually you'll be making this recipe without a recipe, just doing it by memory. My potatoes are cut, so now I'm gonna pop them into my pot, and then they get covered in some cold water. You don't wanna boil your water and then add your potatoes in. That's a mistake because the outside of your potatoes will cook really quickly, and by the time they're fork tender, they'll be just way overcooked and waterlogged on the outside. I'm gonna cover my potatoes with 1 inch of water to spare so they can get to boiling. But first, this would just be mashed potatoes. What about the garlic? You'll want at least 6 cloves of garlic. And what we're gonna do is just give them a little smash, take the skin off, and pop them right into our pot. These will cook through, really impart a lot of flavor, and it'll be delicious. However, if you want even more garlic flavor, grab a head of garlic, roast it, and then you're gonna add that right into your mashed potatoes at the end along with the butter and everything else. If you wanna roast your garlic instead, just remove most of the papery skin, cut the top off, and you're gonna drizzle olive oil all over, wrap it in foil, and bake at 400 for about 45 minutes, and then add it in. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of salt in here now. And now this gets covered in 1 inch of cold water. So cover them completely plus an extra inch, and this can go onto our stovetop. We're gonna pop this onto high heat until it comes to a boil, then reduce to low and simmer for about 20 minutes or until they're fork tender. While that's heating up, we can get the rest of the ingredients ready. You wanna have a 1/4 cup or 56 grams of butter. You can always add more butter. And 2/3 of a cup or 160 mils of whole milk. I'm gonna pop this onto medium heat. You could do this right towards the end of your fork tender waiting situation, or you can do it now and just hold it at warm. You always want your milk to be warm and not cold when you add it into your potatoes. And the butter should be nice and melty as well. So just get it melted, stir occasionally, and then keep it warm. I make mashed potatoes pretty often. I always make it for Thanksgiving and other big meals. And I want to give you some instructions for reheating this if you're making it the day before. Because if you have any big meal, it's nice to prep as much as you can a day or 2 in advance. So the mashed potatoes is a dish that I would make maybe 2 days in advance. And then you pop it into a 9x13 inch baking dish. It gets hang out in the refrigerator. And when you're ready to bake it off, 350, dot butter all over the top. I use a lot of extra butter and cream. Then you just bake until it's warmed through and you'll get like a nice little golden little golden crisp moments on top as well. 20 to 30 minutes or so. Then you bring it out and it is perfect. This is also something you can freeze. So if you have leftovers or you just want to make this in advance because you have time right now, let it come to room temperature, cover completely, transfer to a freezer safe container and freeze it for up to 3 months, thaw overnight in the fridge. And when you want to bring it back to life, add a nice splash of milk or cream, some melted butter, and give it a good mix because it will get kind of dry and crumbly. Just so you know. Let's see if these are fork tender. My potatoes are close, but they're just not quite fork tender yet. You want them to be cooked all the way through, but you don't want to overcook your potatoes because if you do that, they'll become waterlogged, and watery, flavorless potatoes are not where it's at. In fact, I have a trick to get most of that extra water out, which I'll show you as soon as they're fork tender. A couple minutes later, my potatoes are now fork tender, and there's too much water in here, so we're gonna drain all the water, get these into a colander, and then pop them back into the pot. You saw that drip of water at the end. We do not want any excess water in here, so this is an optional step. Just pop it back over to medium-high heat for about a minute or two. Stir gently, occasionally, and the excess water will just evaporate away. Okay. Just a minute or two is all you needed. My potatoes are now thoroughly dried out, and we're gonna pour our warm milk butter mixture right over the top. And now it's time to give your potatoes a mash. I like having some texture, so I don't mind a few chunks here or there. But if you want no texture, all creaminess, you could pass them through a potato ricer. It's important not to overmix or overmash, however, because that'll make the potatoes gummy. You'll work the starch up into a frenzy. These mashed potatoes are great, but if you want it to be pure richness, then instead of using milk, you could just use heavy cream. It's something I do like for Thanksgiving, basically. Or if someone needs a little pick-me-up and they've had a bad day, extra rich mashed potatoes. If I'm making mashed potatoes, I always add sour cream. 1/4 cup will give you a lot of extra creaminess and tang, so they have a nice depth of flavor. Just stir this in right at the end. My mashed potatoes are almost done, but we're gonna add about a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. And then you're gonna give it a taste and add more salt and pepper if you want. When I serve my mashed potatoes, I like to have extra butter melting on top, a sprinkle of chives, and if you want, you could add crumbled bacon, cheese, go to town, a big dollop of sour cream, anything works here. So full of flavor, it melts on your tongue, it's rich, delicious, and it goes with everything. I hope you had a chance to make this easy recipe, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and check out my side dish playlist.